panel. The Pope's children follow the money. He has very kindly come down to chat to us this afternoon. The format for today will be Dave is going to get up and do kind of a State of the Union speech for about 10 minutes or so. Then we're going to have a chat, and then I'll be opening it up to questions from yourselves, any questions that you may have. Okay, so I expect you all to engage fully in the process. David McWilliams.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sort of microphone for dwarfs here, but anyway, that's good. Thank you very much indeed, Shane. It's very, very nice to be here. Just reiterating, it's funny when Shane talked about turn off the phones, I was just something struck me that about 4 weeks ago I was in one of our banks, in the boardroom of one of the banks that still lets me in the door, and it was because they're very strange places and I'm not their best mate at this stage, and I was discussing the future of the bank and how I thought they'd be nationalised and how this was going to be a big problem, and these guys there was like 4 lads in big swanky suits looking at me, and one was the chief financial officer of one of our major banks, and he was absolutely intent, along with his henchmen, to give me the door, to make a fool of me, to humiliate me and say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and in so doing, in a way, sort of suggest that he's a bit of a genius. And he's a very important guy around Dublin, he'd be very well known in the papers. And I had made my point, and he was making his point, and he was about to make his killer point that was going to destroy me and the brand of McWilliams, the name of McWilliams, and all that sort of stuff, as if Neil Delamere didn't do that enough on the panel, but there you go. But he was about to destroy me, and his phone went. And the ringtone was, "Don't You Want Me Baby" by the Human League. Now, can you imagine a grown man, okay, who wants to be taken seriously in the world? Don't you want me, baby? I think he'll probably never work, but that's what happens in recessions. Reputations are changed. It is lovely to be here in Waterford. Waterford is somewhere that I don't know very well, but loomed very large in my life recently because I went to Australia to make a documentary called Addicted to Money, which was on RTE a couple of months ago. And it was an Australian documentary, Australian financed, for the Australian audience in the main, and American, and then we were going to drop in bits about Ireland so that we could show it on RTE. And the thing about the Aussies is they're obsessed by light. Aussie cameramen want you to get up at about 4 in the morning all the time to take these beautiful photographs, to which I was saying, well, look, it doesn't get any nicer than this. This is what you're dealing with, mate, whether it's lovely or not. So he said, no, we've got to get up at 4. And we were in Bondi Beach. And Bondi Beach, for those of you who know, a gorgeous place. And I had spent the evening beforehand, having arrived from Ireland, trying to tell them how sophisticated Ireland was and how incredibly cultured we had become and how Ireland had changed from the Ireland that they knew from their books and televisions of leprechauns and yahoos and farmers and whatever. And Ireland was now a new, modern European country. And I was reiterating this, and in a way kind of proudly. And they said, yeah, it's quite interesting, mate, so you're new and different and cosmopolitan, okay, yeah. So that was fine. And the next morning we get up at 4 o'clock, get out onto Bondi Beach. Now, Bondi Beach, there's 2 types of people on Bondi Beach. 2 types of human species. It wasn't that bad, was it, love? 2 types of human species, right? Very, very different. There are the extraordinarily beautiful Australian surfers, and there's the paddies, right? Nobody should have ever told us we look good in the sun, okay? So this only arrived in my consciousness just as we were about to do the opening shot for this television programme, which was the biggest documentary in Australia. And we're going to do the opening shot. The sun was coming up. There were 4 or 5 beautiful, very, very gay, beautiful surfers waiting for the surf, okay? Okay, milk-fed is what they were like, right? Little 4 Adonises waiting for the surf, loving each other and loving the limelight, loving the cameras. I'm about to address the Australian nation. I had just told them how sophisticated Ireland was, and out of the corner of my eye, and it's very strange on TV because the camera light goes on and you've got to talk, just out the corner, vaguely coming across, were 2 lads in Waterford GAA jerseys. Right? Up the Deja, right? Who'd obviously got off the plane and had been drinking for about 4 days. Okay? And all I heard as I was about to say, Ireland has changed and it's sophisticated, we're going to introduce the whole thing, right? The gay men were there. The two lads in the Daisha jerseys, the little tight GAA nicks on them, right? The boot runners and the socks. And the step one haircut, okay? All I heard, I was about to go, Australian live TV was, all I heard was, "And you fucking queers." And all I did, I just had to laugh. There was my Ireland, sophisticated, tolerant, inclusive, liberal, cosmopolitan, and our two lads from Dungarvan had destroyed the whole thing for me. So I have a special place in my heart for Waterford. And luckily enough, we cut that particular scene out of the documentary and we waited for the lads. What was even funny was trying to get the lads to leave. Because TV camera, 20 pints, about 6 joints. The fella isn't for moving. "How are you, ma'am?" I said, "No, it's not RTE. You just move along." But eventually we bribed them and off they went. So that was my image of Australia. It's Australia and Waterford combined. But I'm going to talk very, very briefly about the economy. I won't bore you, so don't worry. It's not that boring, actually. I remember when I was doing the panel, Andrew Maxwell, who's a very, very funny person. Very strange man. I mean, Delamere is really clever and quick, but inside Maxwell's head is something very wrong. Right? There's a deep, deep recess in there that nobody wants to go into. And I remember there was a certain, in our first panel, I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and again, there's a kind of a mutual, it's like a dog looking at a sheep, you know. He was thinking, okay, you economist. As he referred to me in the first panel, that's your man, he's half computer, half man, is what he referred to me at. So I'm the economist, he's the comedian. And it took us about half an hour to realise that he knew more about the economy than I did. And that's the interesting thing you'll find about going out beyond, you know, the confines of your own game, is that you'll find that people like Maxwell and Delamere and you know, Murphy, they know much more about the world and economics than maybe I do. But what is interesting is that you can make it relevant. And all I'd like to do here today is to explain to you how economics and what you're learning now can be extremely relevant. How is? It's a quick smoke out the back. I'd be there with you if I wasn't up here. Anyway, it is very relevant. Now, what we have at the moment in Ireland, okay, and we won't get heavy about it, but we need to talk about it, is that this country has split now between insiders and outsiders. And what I mean by that is that the country is going to be quite happy for the insiders, and that's the media, the political class, the big business class, maybe a lot of people in the public service who have jobs, though I'm not blaming them, are on the inside. And there's lots of people on the outside. And the recession is throwing the people on the outside out of the country, whether it's emigration. Those two guys from Waterford, right? Great example. Emigrate. What Ireland always does in a crisis is that the insiders get stronger and the outsiders get weaker. In the 1950s, 500,000 people emigrated from this country because they were told to go. In the 1980s, probably some of your parents emigrated because they were told to go. And now we're getting the same thing again. The insiders have put together things like NAMA, which is a bank bailout for the banks, which is simply to enrich the class that got us into the problem in the first place. There's no other reason for it. What they are doing at government level is they are, while giving billions and billions of euros to the banks, they are taking away social welfare payments at the bottom. My own political background is I'm not of the left wing. Shane would be amazed to hear me talk like this. I haven't had a mad conversion to Marxism, despite his best efforts in the last hour. But what I'm saying is that at our core in Ireland, there's an inequality which is getting bigger. And that inequality comes from the fact that the political class, in my opinion, are siding with the wrong people. And they are siding with the very people who got us into this mess in the first place.